Do you trust yourself to teach your own child? Stick around, that's what we're talking about today. Hi, I'm Rebecca with the Parent Teacher Bridge, where you can find the ideas and resources you need to empower you to become your child's most influential teacher. Before we begin, please click like and subscribe, and along the way, make sure to leave a comment or a question. I always respond to those. So today we're talking about, do you trust yourself enough to teach your child? Who has the best intentions for your child? You do. Who is willing to sacrifice the most for your child? That's also you. Now, can you admit that you don't know it all? Yes, of course, but that's anyone. And here's a little secret: even the teachers in the schools don't know it all. That is why you have teacher trainings. That is why you have some teachers doing a better job than other teachers. And any honest teacher out there would admit this as well. Now, if you don't trust yourself to teach your child, then I must ask the question, who do you trust? And secondly, why do you trust that person? Do you know, like really know the person? If so, what have you done to get to that point of knowing that person? What research did you do? Now, some of you may be able to say, yes, I do know my child's teacher on a personal level and I completely trust them. That is a wonderful thing. But can you say that you're going to get that every year that your child is in school? What about those of you with more than one child? Do you know every single one of your children's teachers? And what about some of the specialty teachers? When parents send their children off to school, they do this many times because, well, it's the normal thing to do. That's what their parents did. But they are making a few assumptions and they have a great deal of trust. Who are they trusting? Well, when they send their child to school, they are trusting that that school or that school system has put things in place to bring on to the teaching staff trustworthy individuals, experienced individuals, people that truly care for your children. And a lot of times that is true. All the time, certainly not. We've all read our share of articles online or even had personal experiences to know that that is not a guarantee. When parents send their children to school, here are a few of the things that they are trusting the system to do. Hire a qualified teacher. Hire a teacher that has the best intentions. Hire a hardworking teacher. Hire a teacher that wants the children to learn. Hiring a teacher that is willing to do whatever they can to help the children succeed. And you're also assuming that the curriculum standards that have been chosen and the curriculum materials that have been chosen are something that you would approve of, you would be okay with, and that they are appropriate for the children. Parents trust these things to be true because they have trust in the education system, that teachers have been properly vetted and they continue to be supervised to have high expectations. However, is that what we are witnessing? Is that what you are witnessing in your small area of the country? Will it be the case next year when your child moves on to a different teacher or a different school? What about when your child graduates, all those years in between? Will that be the case each and every year? Do you agree what is taught to your child and how it is taught? You know, I tutor many children and I hear a lot of parent frustrations about the sorts of assignments that are given and the methods that are being taught. They just see plain and simply that their children are being confused. And something that was so simply taught to them growing up is now being made a whole lot more complicated. I'm honestly asking you to dig through your experiences and evaluate, because what I am witnessing with parents that I work with is that they are still continuing to trust this system that employs teachers they do not like or do not approve of, chooses materials that they think don't teach really great strategies for solving problems. And they just generally have a disappointment in the system, yet they continue to trust that system. They continue to trust a teacher who is basically a stranger to them and their family. Why? Why are they trusting that more than they trust themselves? Sometimes you hear a parent say, well, I don't want to disappoint my child. I don't want to fail my child. I didn't get a good education and I don't want to pass that along to my child. Well, let's think about this. What was it that gave you a poor education? 9 times out of 10, parents will say they went to public schools. So if public schools did that for them and left them, falling through the cracks, then why would they want to trust that for their own child? And again, remember, who has the best intentions for your child? You do. And is it possible that you can find resources and find a way to teach your child something that you yourself were not even taught properly? Absolutely. One thing that homeschool parents will say a lot of the time is they learn alongside their child. Another phrase that you hear is that parents are reclaiming their education. In other words, when they are homeschooling their children, they are learning things that they never got to learn in school. They are showing their child, modeling for their child, how do you learn something? How do you learn something? How do you learn something you didn't know? How do you properly research and read about things? And inspiring in their children a love of learning. Now, get this. Here are a few things that's true about you as your child's parent. You know the areas in which you struggle. You are still committed to doing better with your child. And you will move heaven and earth to make sure that you get the help you need in those weak areas that you have in order to best help your child do better in those areas. Now, anyone would tell you who is being honest that there are endless resources that are available. There are other homeschool parents who have traveled this path before. There are numerous curriculum companies out there that are available that you can try when you homeschool. Even teachers don't get to pick their own curriculum most of the time. They just have to take what's given to them by someone higher up. And you have online teachers, you have tutors, you have courses that you can take even. So endless resources abound. It has never before been this easy to homeschool your child. When you are overseeing your child's education, you don't have to worry about what your child is taught. You don't have to worry about waiting for the teacher to reply to your email, miscommunication, your child leaving something behind at school, like an important book the day before a test. In fact, you are in charge of those assignments and tests yourself. You get to make real world connections between your subject areas and say, look, this is why we learn this. This connects to this thing over here. And honestly, you're going to learn things that you never knew that you never knew. Now, many parents who choose to homeschool will enroll their child in some sort of gathering once a week, or maybe even 2 or 3 times a week, depending on that. You have tutorials and co-ops. Usually tutorials imply that you can drop your child off there for a day, and I would advise any parent to do their research there. And co-ops usually imply that the parents are going to be there with their child, maybe helping teach another class to another group of children. But this provides a way for homeschoolers to meet with each other and still socialize and get some encouragement along the way. When you open up the lines of communication with other homeschoolers, likely you're going to hear some of them say something like, yes, I used to be dead set against homeschooling. Man, I hated homeschoolers, or I hated the way they think. And I never saw myself homeschooling. You will hear that one a lot. So as they tell you about their homeschool journey, they will often speak about having a paradigm shift. It could have been several things that line up back to back that happened to them or happened to their child. It could be one large event that happened, but listen to their stories and make your own decision for yourself. Do you know your child? Do you know their passions, their strengths, their weaknesses? You know that you are preparing your child for life in the real world. But get this, if they are in school most of the hours of the week, they're not really in the real world. If you homeschool them, they're going to be with you when you run errands and when you conduct business in your everyday life. So actually, they are getting a little bit more of the real world there. Instead of your child switching teachers year after year and switching schools in a system, your child will be with you. You will know what they are learning. You will be able to make connections from the previous year. I talk to so many parents that are actually a little bit lost or confused on what their child is learning during the day. One parent recently showed me a newsletter that she gets for her third grader. And I said, okay, so what is she learning right now in reading? And all she could say was just a little bulleted point on that newsletter that said, okay, she's working on finding textual evidence. Well, luckily, I have taught before and I knew what that standard meant. Even if you don't, you can look it up. But I just kind of went with that. And during our tutoring session, worked with her the best that I could on that. But the parent really had no idea what the child was learning and doing in school every day. That circles back to that trust. Remember, when you are teaching your child, you know what they learned this year and the previous year, and you make those connections, and those connections become more and more meaningful. So give it some thought. Most people did not come over to the homeschooling side of thinking overnight. It's something that just happens slowly over time. Give it some thought and don't just take my word for it. Just remember that traditional public school K-12 education was not always around, and there have been many successful individuals throughout history who did not have a traditional public school K-12 education. Do your research there, and you might want to check out my free survival guide for the new homeschool family. You can click a link below in the description and check that out as well. If you have a struggling reader and you would like to check out some of my resources or my courses online, be sure to head over to theparentteacherbridge.com/store. Did you click like and comment on this video? If not, be sure to do so and click that subscribe button as well. Share this video with a friend. You know that you're thinking of someone who could use it. Remember, parents, you are your child's most influential teacher.